Dallas Cowboys find themselves in a precarious position this offseason, grappling with how to approach the rapidly approaching free agency period. Their front office, led by Jerry Jones, has embraced a motto that seems both realistic and cautionary: selectively aggressive. The Cowboys' philosophy, at least for now, appears to be more about calculated decision-making rather than an all-out spending spree that often defines the high-stakes nature of the NFL's offseason. While this cautious approach may be grounded in fiscal discipline, it raises questions about the team's long-term strategy, especially when viewed against the backdrop of their competition in the NFC. There's been a marked silence surrounding the Jones family in recent weeks, with no major interviews or public statements coming out of Cowboys headquarters. This stark contrast to their typical outspoken nature suggests that they may be laying low while plotting their next moves. The selectively aggressive stance has left many wondering how the Cowboys plan to navigate the challenges ahead. While teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, fresh off a Super Bowl appearance, and the Washington Commanders, poised to make significant moves, have shown ambition in the market, Dallas' reserve strategy feels like a concession to the reality of their current situation. This offseason, the Cowboys face critical decisions regarding their roster, particularly on defense. Key free agents such as Tank Lawrence, Kendrick, and Jordan Lewis are set to hit the market, and if they aren't re-signed, the team will be forced to find replacements. The defense, which was underwhelming last season despite the presence of star pass rusher Micah Parsons, needs to be revamped. With the retirement of Hall of Fame offensive lineman Zach Martin, the Cowboys also find themselves in dire need of reinforcements on the offensive line. The lack of depth on both sides of the ball cannot be ignored, yet the Cowboys' approach of prioritizing top-tier contracts for a select few players raises concerns about their ability to build a complete roster that can contend in the competitive NFC. The question then becomes, can the Cowboys afford to keep paying big money to players like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Parsons while still addressing their glaring needs elsewhere? The team's salary cap management, which has often involved paying players late rather than locking them in early, further complicates the matter. The 2026 free agent class also looms large, with core players like Turpin, Smith, and Ferguson potentially seeking new deals, adding another layer of pressure on the front office. If there's one bold move the Cowboys could consider, it would be trading away Micah Parsons. Despite his exceptional pass rush numbers and undeniable talent, the Cowboys' defense was one of the worst in the league last season. This suggests that even with Parsons on the field, the team's defensive struggles are systemic and cannot be solely attributed to one player. The Cowboys may be at a crossroads where they must ask themselves whether it's sustainable to pay top dollar for a defensive player like Parsons when they still have so many other areas to address. The idea of trading him, even within the division, may seem radical, but if the Cowboys are serious about rebuilding, they should not be bound by the constraints of traditional thinking. In fact, the franchise might be better off making a clean break and acquiring assets that can help them build for the future. In a hypothetical trade scenario, if a division rival like the Philadelphia Eagles were willing to offer a lucrative package, perhaps 3 first-round picks and a young, promising defensive lineman, Dallas would be wise to take the deal, regardless of the consequences within the division. After all, the Cowboys' championship window is still a few years away, and a trade like this could provide them with the foundation for long-term success. However, the decision to part with a player like Parsons is not solely about football. It's also about culture. There's an argument that Parsons may not fit the Cowboys' team-first mentality, or that trading him could be a necessary step to reshape the locker room. While such a move would undoubtedly be controversial, it could ultimately benefit the team's long-term prospects. The Cowboys have a delicate balancing act ahead of them. Their approach of being selectively aggressive is not necessarily a bad one, but it reflects a franchise that is caught between the desire to build for the future and the pressure to win now. Whether this strategy will pay off remains to be seen, but it's clear that the Cowboys cannot afford to continue their pattern of reactive decision-making. If they are truly committed to contending for a championship, they must be willing to make bold moves, whether that means parting with valuable assets like Parsons or making the difficult decisions necessary to reshape their roster. For Dallas, the time for incremental moves may be over. It's time for a more daring, strategic overhaul.